All right, what's up, everyone? I'm going to go through episode 47 of the Master of One podcast, EACC8. I am a little bit late on this, but there's definitely been a lot of stuff going on. So let me get right into it. So we had EACC8 last weekend, the 4th, and we had 70 players play, so that is a new record. Definitely very cool to see the numbers rising. I remember the first time we went from 40 to 60. We were like, yo, is this going to ever happen again? And we didn't even maintain. I think we did even better by 10 more people. And I even think there's more room for improvement. Okay, before I go into pros and cons, let me just recap what happened in the tournament. So championship section was won by Ethan Sheehan and Andrew Jiang. They tied for first with 3.5 out of 4. Under 1800 was won by Arturo Mesa with 4 out of 4. Under 1400 was won by Saahas Swaroop, also 4 out of 4. And performance bonuses go to Michael O'Brien, who scored 3 out of 4. Really cool story with him is he was like practicing every week, really trying to get better at chess. And then he kind of hit a roadblock. And then the last like couple months, he just like didn't practice at all and was like, all right, well, I'm just going to play. Like if I play, I play. It is what it is. And he had his best tournament, we've ever seen. And we've seen him play a lot of tournaments. He scored 3 out of 4 and gained about 150 points. So that was really cool to see someone get that little breakthrough that they were pining for. And then Hunter Payne also gets a performance bonus for his game. I don't remember who the kid was, but Hunter was getting torched. And he just hung in there. He survived. And then eventually, his opponent basically missed a way to get knight and 4 pawns versus rook, where it's like you can't lose and you can only win. And most likely you're going to win. Instead, he kept queens on the board. And then Hunter found a way to win his knight. And then the king ran all across the land. King Leonidas traveled the west, the east, the north. And eventually, queen and rook versus king, and queen and some pawns, Hunter found a way to win. And this is all played with like 3 seconds left, 2 seconds left. So it's a very important skill to be able to play under pressure and play with such little time. Definitely, I think a proponent of that is him playing on the weekdays so much and just playing blitz and training and being good at handling pressure. So kudos to him. One last thing I'll add is I know in the past he would always be nervous going to the last round, and I definitely would say he's gotten over nerves more. What helps is now he can play up a section, and I think there's a lot of rating to be gained for him in the future. So now let's go over the pros and cons. Actually, before we go pros and cons, I want to go over the rule change. Just one small rule change is if you win a section, you can play up. So say, for example, an 1100 wins under 1400, the next tournament, he's allowed to play in the under 1800 section. So even if you're not within 100 points, you can play up if you win. So that is something that we're adding. I think it makes sense. Like a champion should be able to move up a division. And I don't expect very much pushback on this. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the tournament. So pros, event ran really smooth. The story of the EAC tournaments at this point, pretty much every weekend has gone pretty smooth. I'm not going to try to jinx it and say that nothing will ever happen. But we did good. We set up the night before. We came early. We got everything taken care of. Everything started on time. Everything ran smooth. Marketing was very good. Definitely something that has been, I think, kind of a cornerstone in the boom era, if that's what we're going to call it. I think I handed out flyers at some events. We sent out email blasts. We sent out the mega list. Basically, we kind of have it down. One thing that I think we could improve on is contacting different affiliates better. Like basically in Georgia Chess, there's a couple, I'm not going to say titans, but different people who run events and organizations. And we definitely could have contacted them, I think, a bit more just to get some diversity to the people who played. I would say that was the biggest thing. Once again, like, it's hard to complain when you break your record by 10, but I do think that is something that can be used as an avenue for growth. So 100% believe that. Blitz tournament was huge. I think that's a huge pro. I think we almost had 40 people in the Blitz tournament, which low-key is kind of insane, and is definitely something that I think at some point you can get 50, 60 people. Now, one thing is, it is free. That always helps getting more people. Kind of the plan eventually is to make it $20 for the Blitz tournament, just so I think everyone would play for $20 anyway. And it's a nice way to, I think, get some extra money, especially with cleaning up. And specifically, one of the rooms was, I'm not going to say extremely bad, but noticeably it could have been better. It's probably the best way to put it. And having some extra money too. Honestly, like, I think a big part of it will be to give back to Brandon, at least to up the donations, and having a paid Blitz tournament. And with the numbers we're having would, I think, make a lot of sense. Now, I don't think this is going to happen the next tournament. So this is kind of just the plan. I don't even know if I should say this. But so one pro that we did is to try to build a list early. Normally, the payment deadlines are $40, $50, $60, and then $70. And the payments start 4 weeks out. So our next tournament is on the 13th. So the 4 weeks out would actually be the 22nd of March, which is a pretty long time from now. So to generate a list very early on, like right off the rip, the $40 deadline is Sunday, the day after the tournament. We were honestly thinking about doing it just Saturday, like the day of the tournament, but I wanted some time to send out an email and let people know who didn't show up or who couldn't make it this one, that, okay, if you register by Sunday, then there's going to be the cheapest entry fee. Now, what that kind of does mean is we have to up the other entry fees by basically $10. But the good news is we already have about 30 people registered for the next tournament, and it's more than a month away. So to already have 30 people on the list and growing is a really good place to be. And I do think this is going to help build the list, just in the fact that there's already 30 people way out, and once we hit that 4 week mark where we normally do our price, I think there's a word for this, something like staggering, to have already 30 people, I mean, 60 definitely seems like a must, and hopefully we can get 70 or 80. Now, okay, there is $10 extra fee, but I think since we're getting these new numbers, I do envision increasing the prizes very, very soon. We've actually already increased the prize by $50. We have a senior prize for the top, I think 50 plus. Top person over 50, there's a $50 prize. So that's just the beginning of, I think, increasing the prizes. Now, how much we're going to increase the prize, I'm not 100% sure, but definitely somewhere there will be an increase. I think that only makes sense with how things are going. So, but just to tie this into the Blitz tournament, because there was a $10 increase in prize, I do not think that we're going to charge for Blitz. I want to, once again, stagger it and not do too much at once. So this tournament, we have the increase in the deadlines. Next tournament is going to be the big one. So the other plan is every 5 tournaments, we're going to try to put on a 2-day event, like almost like a pay-per-view, if you want to use UFC terms, or basically every 5th one will be a bigger a tournament. So probably what we would do is for the next tournament, so we have this one, which is number 9. Number 10 would be the big tournament, and then we would probably look at starting to charge. And once again, I don't think it'll ever get more than $20, and I also don't think the entry fee will ever be more than what it is now. Right now, it's doing really well. It's at a very natural cap that I think makes a lot of sense. So it would never increase from here. So that is the plan. So basically, after the big 2-day, the last kind of price increase would be Blitz, and after that, like, this is it. This is the formula. I at some point, I think if we start getting 100 people at Brandon, we're going to have to cap the tournament, and we're going to have to figure out something else to do. I think that's as good as it gets. I mean, if you can get 100 people in a one-day tournament on a Saturday, like, you made it. Like, that's as good as it can possibly get. So that's kind of the price staggering plan, I would say, in the next month, 2 months. Summer will be interesting too. I don't know if we'll be running tournaments every month in the summer. That's something we'll have to see. But another good thing is we are planning the events with some kind of purpose, as in, like, we already have the date for the next event, and we already have an idea of what we're going to do in May. So I think that's also some progress that I think is good to see, and I think is what you do when you're growing and you're increasing levels in a business. So another thing that does happen is there's a lot more to manage. With 70 people versus 40, like, you gotta go through more buys, gotta make sure everyone's in, make sure everyone's ID is up to date, and overall, I think we did a really good job with it. There's actually, funny enough, that the only buy mistake that was made was the guy said that he wanted a round 4 buy when he actually meant round 1. So that was actually on him, so not even on us. So definitely very good planning and, I think, execution. I think the TD work was better. There was not really any issues. Blitz was a little funky, but I think also mentally, like, it's a lot more relaxed. So, I mean, this probably was a lot on me. I was definitely more like, all right, whatever, we'll do our thing. If this happens, we'll try to figure it out. But definitely, I probably should try to improve that next time. Pool. For a few people who came in, we have the TD room, and it's got a pool table. So we definitely getting a lot of pool in during the tournament. And I'm not gonna lie, I definitely feel like I'm getting better, like, which is a pretty cool thing to have. Like, getting better at another skill set just on the side. So that's pretty much for pros. Now cons. Like I mentioned earlier, the Skittles area, one of them was very messy. It was basically to the messy point where we looked at it and we're like, we can't fix this. This is not something that us two can do at night, like, by ourselves. Like, this is like, you needed someone to clean this. So that is something that I think we need to work on. Now, a potential solution, I would say, is to use that room for the tournament. And honestly, like, I think that's going to be something that almost has to happen. Just if we hit the numbers that we're kind of projecting. And I think it would be nice for the high-rated players, or vice versa, the lower-rated players, to be in their own room. Honestly, it's probably going to be the high-rated players. It's going to feel like the special room, or the elite room, in a sense. And that would be a way to keep that room clean, as well as maximize the space of the area. Now, one thing that we would have to do is we would have to probably open up another room for Skittles, because more people or more players means more parents, more other people in the tournament. And if we take up another room, we're going to have to put people somewhere. So that's definitely something that's happening. And I think a lot of people are starting to learn, like, okay, you can drop off, come back later. So people will kind of factor in that there's not much space, but I don't want that to be like a complete constraint, if that makes sense. And then, okay, so playing up. So this very, very interesting psychological experiment that's going on right now. In the under 1800 section, you can play up if you're within 100 points. So if you are at 1300, you can play up. Now, interesting enough, a very big chunk of the under 1800 section are 1300s, because these are the guys, and I think it's a very smart thing to do. If you want to gain rating, you should play up a section. If you're at 1300 and you get to play someone 100 to 300 points higher every round, all you have to do is score 1 point. If you score 2, you're going to gain rating. And what's really, like, I think interesting about this is, what was I going to say? Yeah, it's basically just a guaranteed way. Okay, and this is actually what I was about to say. If, like, the way to really gain rating in these sections is you almost, okay, of course, if you win the first 2 rounds, life is good. But when you're playing round 3, round 4 against someone 100 points rated lower than you and they've lost 2 games, you're getting them in a emotionally or psychologically weaker state. This guy has been kind of beaten down. He's having a bad tournament. Withdrawing is very rare, I would say, in the under sections. In the over sections, Like in the championship section, you'll see it way more often. And then in super big tournaments with grandmasters, you'll pretty much see it all the time. Because basically at that point, like rating is very important. And you know if it's not your day, don't keep pushing it. But at the other sections, it's almost frowned upon to withdraw. And this is something that I've just seen in my chess journey. Like in the beginning, like I actually never withdrew from a tournament, like as a kid. Like that just was not an option for me. And my dad also was a very, I would say, authoritative about this. Like you can't withdraw, you got to finish. And then, I mean, this is kind of the thing that happens with life. Like you start having these moments where it's like, man, since I didn't withdraw, I lost 10, 20, 30, 40 points. If I had withdrawn, I could have stopped the bleeding. I could have gone home. I would have nothing to worry about. And life would be a lot better. And that's kind of something that you kind of just see from people just playing a lot of chess. Like sometimes it's not your day. Sometimes you should actually withdraw. But that being said, like the 1300s, the 1700s, like they are really coming out for these tournaments. And they know they're going to get 4 games, relatively rapid. And it's very positive EV. Is the appropriate way to put it. It makes sense, and it's very just interesting to see. Like I wonder if we change the section to instead of under 1800, it was under 1900, and the other section was under 1500. Would we get a bunch of 1800s in the open section, and a bunch of 1400s? Sorry, and a bunch of 1400s and under 1900, if that makes sense. Like, would it shift 100 points? Would all these people that normally don't play start playing because now they could play up? Now, this is something I think a good way to wrap up the cons is there have been some suggestions like, hey, have you guys thought about changing the format? Hey, have you guys thought about changing the rating limits? Hey, have you guys thought about not letting people play up? And right now, it's very, very difficult to make any changes when business is maxed out. Like when we are approaching apex velocity or terminal velocity, like it would be, I think, kind of dangerous to change anything. Not saying that it will not happen ever. Just as a business, like why would we change what's working? Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And not only that, like it's getting better and better. So definitely something we will keep in mind in the future. Like, should we change this section? Should we adjust this? But right now, like, we don't plan on really changing anything big until I guess we max out again, or we hit some kind of terminal velocity, or we hit some roadblock, or we have incentive to do it. It would be the other thing that might make sense. So that's pretty much the plan with these things. Now, like I said, we don't want to change anything, but we did increase the price a little bit, but I think there was some logic behind it as far as growing the list and like how that would make sense. Okay, so that is it pretty much for the EACC8 tournament recap. Next, I'm gonna recap Music City Midtown. So I actually have a bunch of tournaments to recap, and honestly, this week, like if y'all care, like I will have pretty much a lot of tournament recaps coming out. Like funny enough, they're the videos that people watch the most too, which, I mean, just once again, as someone who plays chess and someone who tries to improve, like if those are the videos that do the best, probably should try to put out more of those. The unfortunate part is the 3 or 4 tournaments I've played this year so far have all been pretty much in a heartbreaking fashion. Not heartbreaking in a way that it was abysmal or terrible and I just tanked everything. Heartbreaking in the sense that I played amazing a big chunk of the tournaments, and it really came down to one big mistake, or like one little mistake that spiraled. And funny enough, that's like really what's going on in my life right now too. It's like one mistake, and what was a good position is now all of a sudden a battle, a fight. And that is something that 100% I need to buckle down on. I mean, this is kind of leaking into the chess training territory, but might as well kind of address it here. But I'm a strong believer that your mistakes in life generally are your mistakes on the chessboard. Like, life is very consistent. One of the most elegant ways I've heard it, but every time I bring it up, no one gets it, is there's a show called True Detective, and a big premise in that show is the idea of life is a flat circle. Like, we keep getting in these loops, and unless you're really going to change, unless something's radical is going to change, you're going to find yourself in the same loop again and again and again. Honestly, for me, for chess, and what I probably need to do with life too, is write stuff down and have a set of rules. Like these set of rules, like they're basically non-negotiables. Like one example in chess that I'll say is, why am I getting up and walking around? Like, and this is something I keep having this battle in my head, and I always agree that I should not walk around. But then you get to the game and you're like, I mean, I have good position. Like, let me just walk around. Like, let me see how this guy's doing. Let me see how Carter's doing. Let me see how Ethan's doing. And this lack of, I would say, just like supreme focus is what you need to maintain at the highest level if you want to be good. Okay. If you be walking around, you cannot get low on time and you cannot make mistakes. This is the tough part about life is sometimes when you make bad decisions, when you do the wrong thing, life will reinforce it in a good way, which is very, very dangerous because now you start thinking, well, I did it then, now I can do it again. I did it then, now I can do it again. And this keeps happening until you actually, now you can't do it again. Now you made a real big mistake and there's pretty much no coming back from it. So really just try to keep, I know I gave a big war speech before I go into this tournament, but I will say like that's something that I've seen in my tournaments. And now let me just go through. So some pros of the tournament is the preparation was pretty much amazing. Like there were definitely flashes of brilliance in this tournament. So my final score was 3 out of 5. I had 2 wins, 2 draws, and a loss. Now the wins, so both of them were openings that I had looked at with my sensei, and we got pretty much what we wanted. One of them was black. I think could have been slightly better, but overall we got what we wanted, and we got just exactly what, like I said, what we wanted. We got the position that we were looking for, and one game was best way to put it, it was prison rape. It was win by massacre. It was, man, this is a position, like that kind of position. And then the draw was against Antipov, so very strong grandmaster, like 2600 I think. And that game was nuts. That game was just a straight thug life slugfest. Like it looked like his king never castled. The king got to e7. He was just big chilling in the center. And then it got crazy, and then he was winning, and he found this one move. Like I was low on time, and I was like, all right, I'm about to consolidate. Like I'm about to get over the hump, and he found this move that just sacked a piece, but I couldn't take it, and I'm just kind of screwed. Like it was just like I don't know what to do. And then somehow I found the only way to really make the most of it and keep pieces, and then at the end I'm actually like winning, like queen versus rook and pawn. Sorry, rook, piece, and pawn. Not like winning, but I'm the one pressing in this position. And then he defends like a G. His king went after running all around town, made it to the corner, and then basically the queen, I had to take perpetual. I think there was a very outside shot I could try to push for the win, but to push for the win, I could also push for the loss, or I could definitely lose that. So at some point I was like, all right, played the top seed, played crazy game. I mean, opening was gangster. Like there was this line that once again we were looking at, and I found this pawn sack, and then I sacked another pawn, and then I'm up a pawn, and then I'm up 2 pawns. Like we were just throwing pawns left and right. This is like real gambling at its finest, I would say. But that was a very fun game. And then basically I'm playing the last round against international master Ron Barnett, and pretty much I have white, and all I have to do is win, and I win the tournament. And I had a great position. I was +3, +4, +5, up 30 to 40 minutes, and I started, just living the good life, walking around, checking out everyone's games. And then all of a sudden, like I couldn't find the win, I couldn't find the knockout, and he just stuck around. He stuck around. I started moving backwards. I would say that was a very big thing. Like when you're attacking, like if they're not attacking you, why are you moving backwards? Like you move forward to find the finish. If you start moving backwards and you're playing reckless, or you're playing loose, that's how you get caught. That's how you get punished. And that's pretty much what happened in this game. And I mean, basically at the end, like, I mean, okay, so basically he offers a draw, and he's winning at this point. But I was like, I needed to win the tournament. if I drew, I think I got like $100 or something. I mean, once again, maybe in retrospect, like sometimes you just gotta settle. Like, why am I jumping to the flame when I can just at least like walk away? Like, I still gained rating this tournament, but very little. A win would have been great. It would definitely would have gained a bunch of rating, but definitely a draw. Like, I would still also gain rating, more rating than I lost. That's for sure. So these are some life lessons, and sometimes, unfortunately, you learn the hard way. Sometimes you learn the hard way again and again and again, and it's like, how many times do I gotta learn the hard way before I really start learning something here? But yeah, this was a very big discipline thing, I would say. Once again, it is kind of hard when you're in Nashville with all the homies to stay, I would say, strictly disciplined. Not saying that it's their fault or this kind of excuse or anything, but that, I mean, that's a discipline thing, and I think that's something that I definitely have to buckle up on in basically all the tournaments. Like, here's a funny part, like the tournament, like my best tournaments, I would say I was not disciplined at all. Never was I mean, maybe I've never been disciplined for. Actually, there are some tournaments I've been pretty disciplined for, but somehow the best ones, like the ultimate best. I'm not saying like I don't have good tournaments without being disciplined, but the very best tournaments where I've been pretty much GM norm pace or almost got it. Now, I wasn't wild, I was sleeping, I was doing well, but I was also having fun too. And that's where like balance is important, but balance is hard because you go too far on one side, now you're in too deep. But sometimes you don't go far enough, now you're just playing stale, you're playing dry, you're not playing inspired. So I mean, that's the tough part about life, tough part about chess, and that was the tough part about this tournament. Now, okay, one definitely takeaway that I went over, or me and my sensei are working on, is there is a certain archetype of chess player that basically I'm going to just call the greasy grinder. So basically what these type of chess players do is they make no weaknesses, they play very solid, and they're very good at not losing. So you have to really beat them. Some people like me, or I would even say Antipov in this position, or at least in this small sample size, like, we will bring the fight. We will make things happen. We will try to knock you out and all that kind of stuff. But when you play someone who's not trying to lose, especially with black, with white, okay, like you have some white privilege, like you can, like black has to be pretty accurate to equalize. Like if you play white and you have a fire opening, like you're probably gonna have a fire position, especially if you work and you study. Now with the black, sometimes you just gotta accept that, okay, like life's not fair. I mean, as much as this sounds racist, it's just that's the sad reality of chess. Like, unless like, okay, and this is where it becomes interesting. Like, either you accept life's not fair and you're just gonna have to be okay with draw sometimes, or you gotta find the right approach. And for certain people or certain openings, I will say work very well against these greasy grinders. Like, let's say, for example, playing greasy grinder. If I'm black and I play the Petrov, like, this is exactly what he wants. Like, I mean, he was ready to trade queens. He's ready to sit there and chill. He is ready to not have to worry. But let's say, for example, I'm white and I play the Evans Gambit, or I play the Dragon, I play the Najdorf, I play the King's Gambit. Against these greasy grinders, unless they know the variation really well, if you catch them by surprise and have to make them navigate the fire, if you can take them through the fire, that is how you 100% can capitalize against these people. If you play the crazy guys and you play the King's Gambit, the Dragon, the Najdorf, like copy paste, you might actually get burned in the fire. So that is what I'm trying to get at, where it's like your opening choice, I think, does matter based off your opponent's style. I'll make a very quick MMA comparison. Hopefully it makes sense to everyone. But let's say you got a striker, you got a jiu-jitsu guy, and you got a wrestler, right? So if you're fighting a striker who's really good at striking, like he'll knock you out, Sean O'Malley, Alice Pereira, these guys have dynamite, or Mike Tyson, they have dynamite in their hands. Do you want to strike with this man, or do you want to try to take him down and wrestle him? Now, something that you'll see a lot, especially I would say not at the very elite, but the levels below that, is generally people have one thing that they are very good at, and then they have deficiencies, or they're good enough at certain things, but it's not the preferred method. It's not the preferred kind of path. So like this striker, generally, is going to be bad on the ground. Now, of course, there are some people, and I'm trying to get to this level, where there's some people who are very good at striking and they're very good on the ground. But for the most part, like at a certain level, like people are, like I said, are only going to be good at one thing. So if you are fighting a striker and you like to go to the ground, or you know he's bad on the ground, you take him to the ground. If you are a striker and you are fighting like a wrestler or a jiu-jitsu person, you're going to avoid the ground. You're going to avoid endgames. That's what these guys want. They can get an endgame. They're going to be like, it's lit. Like, now my wheelhouse. So just something that you all want to think about when you're trying to think about openings. Try to think about your style, what makes sense. Like if you're a very attacking player, you probably don't want to play the King's Indian. You probably don't want to play the Grunfeld. Now, if you are an attacking player, you want to play these openings. You want to play E4. But if you're a slower pace, more grindy, more positional player, maybe you want to play D4. Maybe you want to play Caro-Kann, French, these slower paced positions. So I think openings say a lot about you, and I also think that you want to think stylistically, what is my path to victory here? And these are the last in-depth detail I'll go into, I swear. A lot of times you can tell a person's style by the way they look, by what they do, by how they appear, what they wear. Like, for example, I'd be wearing jewelry, I'd be wearing chains. I am a thug life gangster. Like that's the way I play chess for the most part. I can do some positional stuff, and honestly, I probably got to do a lot more these days. But like you see all this stuff, and that's how you know, okay, like this guy probably wants to attack. Another, like if you see somebody like an older guy, you see someone who moves very slow, really thinks about what they say, honestly doesn't talk a lot, they're probably going to be a slower paced player. So these are just things to keep in mind, and things that I have learned along the way. So now, I mean, I basically have talked a lot about this, but let me just hit on the points that I had listed. So when you're studying chess, especially when you're playing online, I think the way you sit is very important. I think this is a very underrated aspect of chess. And this is actually something that I actually learned a lot from FIFA. When I'm playing FIFA and I'm sitting back, relaxed, whatever, like I do way worse, like very noticeably worse. And that's because my style is very, let's go, let's get in here, let's do something, and when I'm trying to sit back, like my play is just lackadaisical. It's not sharp. It's not polished. And I noticed that a lot with blitz. Now, two things about blitz, and I've definitely talked about this before, but I swear this is the last time. I'm going to get better at it. Posture, like I said, very important, but also no watching something on the side, no doing something on the side. When you do that, I always get low on time. And I think naturally I kind of just get low on time anyway. But when I'm watching something on the side, when I'm sitting back, it's like threefold how bad the position or the problems are. So I think your posture, your energy, your attitude, very important, very underrated things in life and in chess. Now what else am I doing in my chess training? So now that we're studying, there, like, once again, a lot of good takeaways from all the tournaments. But we're really trying to find a way to take the fight to certain people. Like, unfortunately or fortunately, or it is what it is, like, most people these days in chess at the higher level are these greasy grinders, are the guys who are just trying to chill, not do anything, or not lose. Once again, it's not like it's a bad thing. Like, honestly, if you want to make IM, you want to make GM, you can't lose. Now, you're going to have to win too, but not losing is a big part of that. And having this style where it's just like, wow, I don't understand how you're going to beat me. Like, it's pretty much impossible to beat me when I play this way. So me and my sensei are trying to put a lot of time in the opening to try to get myself in these street fights or thug life fights. But once again, if I'm playing a gangster, maybe I slow down a little bit, so it's not I don't get burned by my own flames. Okay, now since I said that term, I just want to throw in one thing. Avatar: The Last Airbender. So if y'all don't know, or if you guys know, there's 4 elements: fire, water, earth, and air. And I also think like a lot, like people are naturally either firebenders or airbenders. Like, what is their style? Like, who are they? Like, there is a similarity. Like me, for example, I am 100% a firebender. Like, that's the way I play. That's the way I live my life. And that's honestly why I get in trouble. I'd be flying too close to the sun, and burning myself. Not even getting burned, it's burning myself. That's the worst part. Yeah, if you honestly, like, if y'all want to know more about these elements and what they kind of say about you, like Uncle Iroh and explains it to Zuko. So if you just YouTube Iroh and Zuko elements explained, he goes through it really well, and he does a good job of, I think, summarizing the personalities for each. So now let me just wrap up with physical training. So sauna, been doing a lot, working out, back on it. Definitely, like, something that I would really want to do with working out, and I'm going to implement, is using spreadsheets to record not only just doing the exercises and making sure that I actually do it, but also the weight, how much weight I do, how many pounds I do. Now it's an interesting predicament, because I actually don't want to gain a bunch of muscle, because I am trying to box, and if I gain too much muscle, I'll be slow, I'll be heavy, I'll be too big for my own good. So a lot of it is kind of just working out for conditioning. So less weight, but a lot more reps. Because man, when you boxing, your hands after 1, 2, 3 rounds, they just want to go down. Your shoulders like, bro, I'm tired. Please give me a break. I need a second here. So that's the way I think I'm going to work out. And then the spreadsheets. All right, so now chess students. A lot of these guys are on the rise, doing better, gaining rating. But I think one part that's hard, and it's very different teaching people who are under 1400 and who are 1400 plus. Under 1400, it's honestly like just so easy. You just know like, I teach them the opening set, I teach them the proper rules. Their opponents make mistakes, they practice 3 times a week, boom, they're good now. Like, it's really that easy. You just have to practice 3 times a week and follow kind of the rules that I cover. Now 1400 plus it's very, very different. You have to hold a lot more information, and honestly, like, this is my honest opinion from teaching and all this stuff, like, to get better after 1400, most of it I think is psychological. It's like, what mistakes am I making a lot? How do I stop that? What am I doing that makes me lose? Like, that's how, if you want to get better after 1400, that's pretty much what you got to do. You need to work on your mind and yourself. Now, of course, you need to train, you need to play, you need to do puzzles. But I've had a lot of students who do that, but sometimes they're still kind of stuck. And I think really, if you want to get better, if you want to do that, you got to fix your mind. And I mean, this is pretty much the story of my life right now. Like, I need to fix, okay, there are things in chess that I need to fix too. But at some point, every chess game is going to pretty much end up a street fight. Like, you can only control so much. Like, okay, I can memorize every single opening, and yet I will definitely get an opening that I've never seen before. It's guaranteed. Now, will you get openings that you've seen before as well? Of course. So I'm never going to say preparation is bad, but preparation for the most part is not why you lose. Like, I don't even know if I've ever been, like, out prepped. That's actually hilarious to think about. Has anyone just prepped me and won? I don't think so. Like, people have prepped me and made it boring. People have prepped me and almost forced to draw or got a very dryish position. But prepping me and winning, that has yet to happen, fortunately or unfortunately. So I could do better, I could do more, but end of the day, don't forget, it's going to be a fight. You're going to have to do some fighting at some point, and a lot of that is mental. It's really like, how do you not beat yourself in the same way you've done it before? And then here's another thing I want to talk about students is the vacation drop-off. Every time I go on vacation, they go on vacation, it does feel like we did lose some progress. Like, maybe, I'm not going to say a week's worth of progress, but not as efficient of a week for sure. And now, honestly, I think that's something that's just going to happen. Once again, I think burnout is a thing. Like, you don't want to push someone to the limit and be like, well, you just should do chess every day all the time. Otherwise, you're not going to get better. There is a level of, you need to do other things too. You need to, enjoy life, spend time with family, do the things that one day maybe we won't make it to again. I think that's very important. And I think once again, it does come back to balance. Like that is kind of the secret of life. It's once again, it's a secret of life, but it is like a bajillion times harder to do. And I mean, generally, I will say, like, if you err on the side of working too hard, that is generally better than the other side. But I mean, there's people make it work with the other side too. So yeah, if you're on vacation, the best thing I would say is, well, actually, honestly, honest opinion, depends on how hard you are working. If you were working very, very, very hard, it was all you're doing all day, all the time. When you go on vacation, honestly, take a vacation. You work hard. Like, you will put in the work. That's not the problem. The problem is you putting too much work in and your mind being stuck, or your mind not being able to be fresh. Now, on the other side, if you kind of, you just like to do things, like you're not the firebender, you're not the crazy psycho who's like, I need to get better at everything, I need to do all this. If you're on vacation, honestly, probably you should do a little bit while you're on vacation. Like, it shouldn't be a pure vacation in the sense of you're just gonna not do anything at all. Because I mean, if you do that, like, you will actually lose progress. So that's what I would say. The mindset for vacation is, if you're gonna take a vacation, for sure, be my guest and go for it. Now, last thing to sum this all up, just some sports things. Yeah, so the All-Star break was interesting. I didn't go over any of this stuff, but it'd be interesting. I mean, I've been watching a lot of basketball recently, and it's very, very hard to predict the winners all the time, but to have a good sense of the winners is interesting. It's like you really take in psychology, you take in momentum. I'm starting to kind of realize, like, how important math and statistics are, and math, statistics, and then at the end of the day, just psychology. Like, it really is a combination of all these things. And then even then, you can do it all right, make all the reads. They can have no good players in, and somehow this is why we love sports. Like, sometimes whoever's supposed to win, whoever did everything right, like, they made all the right plays, you still lose. And this is actually something that I have talked to some chess players. Sometimes it just feels like God is on your side, and sometimes it just feels like God is not on your side. Like, God is like, man, you got some things to fix, brother. Like, that's how it feels sometimes, and it's tough. I mean, it comes back to, like, Mike O'Brien. He was doing everything right. He was practicing. He was doing lessons. He was studying, and somehow he wasn't breaking through. And then he said, "Well, I'm out. Like, let me go enjoy life. I'll be back later, I guess." And then he has the best tournament of his life. Like, I mean, if I really want to sum this up, this is like a very big human psychology thing. It's something that you see with girls too. Like, if you try too hard, that is the number one way a girl is not going to like you. If you tell her I love you too fast, she's not going to like you. Low key, if you tell her that you hate her, she'll probably like you a bit more. And once again, it's balance. I'll give you, okay, if you keep telling a girl, like, you don't like her and she's terrible, okay, at some point she's going to be like, okay, I don't like this guy. But if you do both, if you're nice and you're kind of, I'm not going to say mean, because then you might get lost in the sauce and then you're just, like, trying to be mean. But if you are bold, if you are firm with what you're trying to say and you really mean it, like, then it's respect. It goes from dislike to respect. So that's a very interesting thing that I've definitely been seeing. There's a great UFC card, UFC Miami. I mean, the strikers' paradise. Sometimes all the grapplers win. This one was for the strikers. The strikers put on a show, highlighted by Sean O'Malley and Dustin Poirier. So that was really cool to see. Okay, this is actually the last thing I was gonna say. Something funny, like, I would think about something, and then I would forget it, and then I would move on, and then it would come to me like 10 seconds later. But basically, the last thing I was gonna say is I did do an open mic. I think it was last Monday. It was actually a week ago. Crazy enough, I did an open mic, and it was horrendous. It was like, it may be one of the worst bombings. Like, at some point I was like, all right, I'm gonna go. But the reason why it was so bad was I was like, all right, I'm just gonna wing it. Like, I don't need to practice. I know what I'm doing. Like, let's just go. Like, I had some ideas and I had some things that I had written and I was thinking about, but I didn't really work to memorize it. And that is another thing with natural style. My natural style, I need control. I want to work and I want to know what's going on. If I just try to wing it, God be with me is the best way to put it. God is not with me then. But some people are the exact opposite. If they try to practice too much, record everything down, they are like, I don't know, why am I doing this? I have no idea what's going on. But if they just wing it and they go free, they crushing it. They killers. Some people don't even write down stuff. They just like have ideas and they say it. That's it. If I try to do that, it ends up so bad. Now, this is actually something I listened to, and this is how it closed. I listened to this on, I think, Rogan. He was talking to another comedian, and they were saying, like, people feel energy. And not to say it in, like, a demeaning way, but humans are kind of like dogs, or they're like animals. And I mean this in a good way. Like, dogs can't speak, but they know how you feel. They know when you're sad. They know when you're happy. They know when you're mad. Like, and if you go on stage and you don't believe what you're saying, if you're just like, all right, here we go, this is it, or like, not like that, you're like, oh, I think I want to say this, but I'm also kind of not sure if I should say this because it's kind of a sensitive topic. People feel that energy and they are like, all right, who is this fraud? Like, why is he here? What is he doing? And then they don't laugh. At the same time, if you're just having a good time, if you're just like enjoying life, then people are like, oh man, this is great. I don't even care. It's almost like I don't even care what he's saying. I just like what he's saying. I like his energy. I'm gonna laugh. So this is, I think, a very important concept. Maybe I'll add a name to this podcast, but energy and balance, like, very underrated. Don't get enough attention, but I really think like these are the details that if you want to really get that mastery level, if you want to be a master of one, this is what you got to do: energy and balance. All right, that's it for today, guys. Peace.